Hey everyone, it's Charlie here. So good to be back in front of the camera with some interesting people ready to share some of their wisdom with you. One of the biggest feedback that I had received from the Dark Night of the Soul Summit, just recently passed in May of this year, was that you wanted more interviews. You wanted to hear from more people. So I was lucky enough to also hear from many people that were really interested in the topic and wanted to talk more about it. So here we go. I'm putting the two together and I'm sharing these people with you. So today I am interviewing and chatting with the lovely Marisa Handler. Marisa is a writer, singer, songwriter. She's a teacher and a coach. She's also the author of Loyal to the Sky, which won a Nautilus Gold Award for world-changing books. Her essays, fiction, and poetry have appeared in numerous publications, and her music is available on various platforms. Marisa earned her MFA from the Iowa Writers Workshop and has received many fellowships in creative writing, including a Fulbright and an Elizabeth George Foundation grant. On the spiritual side of things, Marisa has been studying insight, meditation and meditation retreats and daily life since 2002 and instructing since 2012. She's a certified facilitator of the work of Byron Katie and has long-term practices in authentic movement, somatic experiencing, and various forms of dance. Marisa is the founder of Live Your Creative Genius, an in-depth coaching program offering a new paradigm for creative work, and she teaches on creativity, writing, and transformation at places like Stanford University, Spirit Rock Meditation Center, Esalen, and the California Institute for Integral Studies. Please welcome Marisa Handler to a lovely chat that we're going to have some more about the Dark Night of the Soul. Hi, Marisa.
Hi, Charlie.
So so let's dive right in because I was really excited when you sent me the email and as I said the summit had kind of already been formed and you really wanted to talk about this topic. So I didn't want to miss out. I feel as if you really do have some fabulous things to share with us. Such an important topic. So I'd love to hear your thoughts around firstly the Dark Night of the Soul process and what that means for you.
Yeah, so I've had some experience with the Dark Knight, and the way my own experience played out was breakdown, basically. And so I had gone to graduate school at the Iowa Writers Workshop, it's the best writing program in the country. I'd come out with a Fulbright to go work on my novel in India, and I seemed set, everything in my life looked great from the outside, but I'd had a lot of anxiety that had been building over time. And I went to Varanasi, which is a very intense place, and basically just fell apart. Like I started having terrible anxiety. I stopped sleeping, and then I just went into a hole. And so I ended up actually coming back to California and leaving the Fulbright with the funding, with all of it, to try to heal. And it was years really of navigating my way through. There were ups and downs and times that were better, but I couldn't work for quite a while. I thought I had lost. I'm a writer and a singer-songwriter, and it's a lot of what I do. And I thought, oh my God, I've lost. I'm an artist, and I've lost my creativity. Like I couldn't write or sing. And I'd gone from being someone who was pretty confident and creative to this kind of shell of myself. I was scared to go to the grocery store. It was quite something. And later I would recognize, okay, this actually had its roots in trauma, and there were reasons on a psychological level. But what also happened was things began to open spiritually, and I'd been on a path for quite a while at that point. I'd been regularly sitting silent retreat within the Theravadan lineage of the Thai forest tradition of Buddhism. And I'd actually a couple of years earlier sat a month on retreat, so I'd spent time. I thought I knew my mind and my heart and what was in there. And so it really threw me for a loop, and it was hell. It was, I wouldn't wish it on anybody. And it changed me, and I had a couple more experiences after that. Each time it has been an incredibly painful, difficult, terrifying portal to something bigger, ultimately. So the way that I've come to see the dark night, and I'm sure there were others in your summit who spoke to this, is actually as a portal, to our awakening. It's almost like a fast track. You could hold it that way. The reason I'm passionate about it, the reason I decided to kind of come out and actually start writing and publishing about my experience with it, was because I had so much shame around it, and I wanted for others to carry less shame with these experiences, because we live in a culture that pathologizes this. It's mental illness, it's this, it's that, fix it, get rid of it. And while it's really hard, and there can be a place for all kinds of treatment, including medications, ultimately, I think it's actually a very important initiation, really, into something bigger than we have been so far. Yeah, I mean, I like the metaphor of the chrysalis, because in the chrysalis, the caterpillar is mush, basically, and if it's aware of it, I imagine it would be really painful before it begins these imaginal cells. I love that, what they're begin to form wings, begin to grow into a butterfly. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to agree. When I first heard about the mush in the chrysalis, I was resonating with that. I was probably right in the middle of my mush at the time, and I'm
Oh,
thinking,
wow. Yeah.
yeah, and even that idea that it's like, even your words, it's that breakdown, really. I mean, and it's a painful process, and there's a lot of guilt and shame in that you don't want to share with people. You don't want to ask for help. You don't want to, we kind of want to be able to say that we're okay, we're going to manage on our own, or it's not that bad. But yeah, it really is. It's a frightening experience, because you don't know when the end is either, do you? You don't know
Yes.
what's waiting for you, or how long it's going to be, or how to get out of it at that point.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that's the most terrifying. It's like where the mind would go with it. What if I'm never able to work? What if how am I going to have money to pay rent next month? Just all of
Right.
these. Yeah. Yeah. And I wanted, so I wanted, the first article I wrote about my experience went kind of actually viral in a way, and opened me to, like, wow, there's a need for this. And if we could just, if others going, if I at the time had known, and I got this framing, I got it from spiritual teachers, like, you're okay, it'll end.
Yeah.
It was hard to believe sometimes.
Yes, it is. It can be, because I think in that darkness as well, you become very hard on yourself, right? It's like the darkness is talking to you, trying to keep you there, and like we said, you're not feeling that ending. So what do you feel like for yourself have been the gifts that have come from that?
Um, there's been a number. One has been really just coming into my own as a healer. I feel like the artist archetype was pretty developed, but the healer was in formation for years. But I kind of, oh, okay, this is part of what I'm meant to do here, and so the ability to sit with others. I work with groups and one-on-one with clients, and not be scared by someone going through something very intense, and I think that's true for everybody who's either in the process of or has moved through a dark night, is that we bring forward that gift to others where we can hold space for that. So that's been a real gift. Just having a sense of, like, I can handle this in someone else because I know what it's like, and also have genuine compassion. And then the other thing I would say is it just expansion as a being. ultimately, it forced me to do so much inner work. It was either that or stay stuck, so I used my tools, and my toolkit grew because it had to. I had to find modalities, practitioners, etc., that worked. And somehow there was always, because money was an issue, but somehow there was always enough, which built in me a very deep trust, actually, which is another gift. But I think doing all of that work and that kind of purification and looking all of my demons in the face, meeting them, working with them, ultimately that kind of transformational work opened me up to much deeper states also of freedom and joy and being. Yeah.
I was going to ask you about what kind of, purpose does that role play, but you've kind of really talked about that and explained in a nice way the purpose that it's also given you. How might you expand a little bit more on that for other people if they're thinking, you know, sometimes the dark night of the soul part can be right there in front of them if it's a big change for them in their life, a big breakup or some kind of big, collapse of some part of their world.
Right.
Um,
Right.
what could be the purpose that they could look for in that in some way?
Yeah, there's a teacher, Jeannie Zandy, she's actually someone I met with when I was in it, and she's written and spoken quite a bit about the Dark Night because she had a pretty formidable experience herself, and she wrote about it as like the beloved, like God is, or whatever you want to, whatever your source spirit holding your foot, and there's a big thorn stuck in your foot and saying, hang on honey, this is going to hurt, but I'm pulling it out. So I kind of love that, like that there's something, and this is my experience too, like it's not it's bigger than you, like if you're moving through it right now, it's bigger than you, and so you may not have good frameworks at the moment to make sense of it. And so as much as you can to trust, to use good tools, like we want to try to stay out of total overwhelm, keep ourselves somewhat in balance, and actually take good care of the kind of animal body, right? So do what you can to feed yourself regularly, get good sleep, get a little exercise, just and hang in there, and trust that something's happening that may not make sense right now, but there will be a narrative as you move through it that comes into formation. And the other thing that I would say that I think is key is you're not just doing it for you, you're doing it for others. You really are. We are moving through a collective dark night. We need people capable of midwifing that for the rest of us. We really do. And for those of us who have gone through this experience or are going through it, you are going to be those people. You're going to actually have a very important role to play. And you may feel nothing like it at the time, but when you're needed, you'll be ready.
Oh, there's so many things that I love about what you just said. So, yes, the thorn in the foot, absolutely. That's a beautiful image almost as well.
Mm.
And there's also that tendency when you're in it, because as humans, when we're in pain and when we're in trauma and suffering, we tend to think very small, don't we? Like about the detail of what's going on and looking at the why and the how could I have stopped this. And it
Yes.
is, as you said, it's very difficult to kind of go big and say, okay, the last thing you want to hear is, oh, you'll be okay. This will be good for you. Like, okay,
Yeah, totally.
don't tell me that. So yeah, I think that's a lovely way of saying being kind to yourself and also the strength that comes from it afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think what I learnt from the summit with so many people talking about their experience from it
Mm.
is that it is actually this cyclic process that
Mm.
we're actually meant to go through and that we will actually continue to go through, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it won't just be that one time. It's just that we get better at it.
We get better at it. And I think I think as we get to deeper layers, often they get subtler, so it can get easier.
Right.
You know, it's like we're still working on the same core wounds usually, um, but um, but it's a different layer, you know, and often that as we get better at it, it doesn't need to get as loud to wake us up.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I guess, with the awakening process, how do you frame it as being connected to the awakening?
Yeah, it's well, it's such a good question, and there's a few ways. For one, there's a kind of an ego death involved. At least for me, it was on some level, there was an annihilation of who I'd been, which was, I didn't want to let go of that image of myself. You know, it was painful. But it kind of, on some level, lays the groundwork for the annihilation of ego that is awakening, that is ultimately abiding, you know, an abiding form of awakening. Um, I also just think that it is a very deep purification that happens of the things that block. I mean, you know, we're all, there's so many great Buddhist teachers and sages and Hindu and a lot of the Eastern traditions that have spoken to us like, you're awake already, you know. It's just you haven't, there's things blocking. It's like the things that are blocking that, right? So they're blocking the simplicity of the moment. There's a Zen priest who said, you know, enlightenment is non-anxiety about imperfection. So it's like we're working through the anxiety, you know, we're working through the layers that keep us from full acceptance ultimately of ourselves and thence the moment, you know, reality, life, the world. So it's like we're getting intensive sort of training, really. It's almost like a boot camp for the spirit or the soul, and so I know for me, I did when and emergence was not an immediate thing. It was a gradual process of, oh wait, I actually am better than I was 3 months ago. I like this thing is different. It was gradual. Um, but on really coming out on the other side, there was an absolutely a lightness that had come through, and a sense of much deeper understanding and freedom. And also just perspective, like the things that used to feel like my world was ending. Now I was like, no big deal. Like I know what it's like to feel like my world is actually ending, and that's a big deal. You know? So more equanimity. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, nice. So, I mean, you say you feel quite different. I guess that means that with the anxiety because anxiety is so crippling and difficult for people who to understand who don't have that anxiety.
Yeah.
Um, how has that changed for you now with a different view of who you are?
Yeah. So again, it was a gradual kind of emergence. And so it was like, it was both. It was like, okay, I take one more step into the world and I do the internal work around all the stuff that comes up. And then take another little step. And so it was kind of baby steps. Um, but it's not that I don't experience anxiety. It's more like I've watched, as I've done my work with trauma, really, I've watched it move. So there are certain places it does still come up. You know, it's not like, I mean, I make no claim to being a fully awakened being, but it's, in my experience, as we do this work, it's just less dominant and less powerful. So it's like it does come up, but it comes up in less places and it's not as powerful. I might think it's as powerful because it has the same kind of footprint, but I'm able to hold it in ways that I wasn't, and it doesn't last as long, is the other thing. You know, so if I'm okay, this is what's happening, I'm going to sit on the cushion, or I'm going to bring it to inquiry. I'm a facilitator of the work of Byron Katie, and that is a you know, phenomenal tool, and has been for me to really work with what the mind does in such a place. And then it's like, oh, okay, instead of this getting me down for a few days, it's like, okay, I'm like knocked down for I don't know, maybe an hour or a few hours, and then I'm okay, yeah, this is manageable. So over time, it's like, oh, this thing that used to feel like death now feels, it's still, when it comes up, it still has this footprint of like, oh, this is awful and I don't know if I can stand it. But then I am standing it, and it's actually not as bad, and it moves much more quickly.
Yeah, nice. So it's almost like a bit of a reminder that, like, yes, I'm still here,
Yeah.
but it doesn't manage your world anymore. It doesn't manage who you are.
Right. And I think that, yes, because it's easy to go into, like, often when I teach, I say this, like, it's very easy to go into like, oh, nothing's changed, this thing is still here. But if we're paying attention, it's different. It is different. And ultimately, these are our greatest teachers, like these places. This is where, again, where awakening is a portal. It's like the places that are hardest, the trauma, the whatever it is, because it forces us to meet it, and to meet it ultimately, if unless we're meeting it with some degree of love, we're not making much progress.
Mm.
You know, we can have fantastic mindfulness, but if we're hating it, nothing's going to really shift, you know. So it humbles us, and it really is our, on some level, our greatest teacher of love and of freedom, because we wouldn't do that work unless we had to, most of
Right.
us, you know.
No, we certainly would. I know I certainly wouldn't. I've often said in some of my other videos, I learned the hard way. Apparently, that's
Yes,
what I do. Because it's,
I
yeah,
right
it's
with you.
energy that moves you, right? Like you get involved in certain things, you do stuff a certain way for whatever reason, and you're not going to move until it becomes painful and uncomfortable. And you're like, oh, right,
Yeah,
okay, I'm going to have to stop doing it this way and doing it this way. And yeah, it's just, and I think we need to be kind to ourselves about that too. You know, I think it becomes I think that's really how there aren't very many people that I know that can say, oh no, I just go because that's how, you know, I don't know anyone
no,
that
nobody.
does that.
I don't think it's true for anybody, but yeah,
No.
I think what you point out is whether we kindness, love, like, unless that's online in some degree, it's hard to move. You know, it's hard to, yeah, yeah, hard to make progress.
And I agree with you in that sense where it is almost like learning to love those experiences. I have ended up having to do the same on reflection of things rather than becoming the stories of these things that happen to you that you're like, oh, you know, but to actually appreciate and have gratitude for those things, you know, regardless of those traumatic experiences. And I know that can be hard in the early days, but when you get to a point in your life where you've really powered on and you've really changed and able to, you know, manage yourself differently, you can see the benefits in,
Yeah,
you know, as difficult as sometimes that can be. You know that you are a different person because of that.
absolutely. I mean, I think for me, it was a lot of it was coming out of the victim mentality, because you know, it's easy. Like, it's an easy place to go, but ultimately it robbed me of my own power and autonomy. You know, so again, for me, the work of Byron Katie was very useful around coming into a place of, what have I done to myself over these past decades? You know, that's how because that's where, oh, that might be difficult to look at, but it's very good news, because it means that I'm the one running the show here.
Yes, I have had my own experiences with that victim archetype, and you can get stuck in it quite easily, but it is very disempowering, isn't it?
Ultimately, yeah. I mean, I think there are times where we need that story because it makes
Oh.
sense of what happened.
Mhm.
And then there is a time where we outgrow that story, and it's
Mm.
time for being the beings of power that we actually are.
Yeah, absolutely. So how is it, I guess, from this awakened experience and now having had all this happen, how has it changed for your creativity?
Oh, that's a great question. I some well, the themes that I'm interested in shifted as well, you know. So So there's that. I feel like every song I write on some level is a love song to the divine at this point, and certainly I can speak to that in my writing as well. Just what I'm thinking about somewhat has shifted. But the biggest change I would say, and this is I have a group program that I run, and this is key to, I wanted to take what I'd been doing and thinking about on the creative side into an actual program, and is that I see creativity as not just something I do when I sit down with my guitar or my laptop or my journal or whatever. It's everything. Like I am part of a much bigger creative process. We all are, together we create this collective creative process. And we're all, I mean, quantum physics supports this. Like we're all impacting and influencing each other. It's this big cosmic dance happening. So I would say the major shift is I'm still an artist. I'm still doing my work. But it's that I see everything as creative, from the way I view the world to what's moving through me, to what gets presented to me on any given day, to this moment right now, and what might come. Who knows what's going to come through this person? This, like I don't, what answer or what question or what insights. Yeah.
Yeah, that it does change things like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That channeling process. Like you've opened yourself up so nicely.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's so much energy that comes through. I've learned just through, I mean, I'm by no means a songwriter or a singer, but through the plants, what I've learned through plant medicine and with the
Mm.
Icaros, which are the songs that are
Yes.
usually given by the plants,
Yes.
just the amazing energy when it's being channeled like that. It's just I don't even know the words,
Mm.
but the coming from the heart, coming from the spirit is it's just such an amazing thing to hear and to feel. They're so
Mm.
powerful. I've certainly
Mm.
learnt a lot about to appreciation of those things in such a
Mm.
different manner myself.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it is, as much as it's kind of an inside job, and as much as we need support from others, because we do, and I mean, for me, that was crucial. Um, it is something greater and more mysterious than us that's moving through. We aren't really in control.
No. No, as much as we like to think that we are.
I know.
Yeah, definitely not. Which is kind of comforting, really, in a way, because humans being in control hasn't done very
Yeah,
well.
not doing a great job so far. Yeah.
No, not really. Um, well, what a great conversation. I really appreciated this. I'm wondering what might kind of come through for you if in a way of saying to people, if they're listening to this and, maybe they're going through something right now, or just coming through the end of something right now, what kind of things might you say to them?
Mm. I'd say find at least one person that you can talk to about it. It'd be, a mentor, a therapist, a coach, someone who can remind you of the bigger framework. And I'd say there is a bigger framework. And you get to rage and scream and hate it and have your tantrums. Like, you don't have to hold this in. If it needs to move through the body or the voice, move it. Like, go, let it through. Some days it's going to be just getting through each hour. It might be like that. And your job is just to survive it. That's it. On days like that, other days there may be a little bit more of a, and the other thing I will say is, in my experience, when we're that torn open, we're in a kind of a liminal state. So my experience was that while I had tremendous access to darkness, I also had quite a lot of access to light, and this came through in different ways. So I would also say, like, just stay curious about that, because you might find that there are some real gifts, even when it's really hard, that can come through, that are quite beautiful. And you're doing it for all of us. May not feel like that at the moment. You may identify, being a productive human as meaning that you're holding down your job or doing your usual things or whatever, but on some deep, mysterious level, you're doing this for the collective, not just you. Yeah. So thank you.
That's beautiful. Yeah, thank you, Marisa. And just on what you said then, I was thinking to myself, talking about the darkness and that the light is there.
Mm.
The darkness always seems to be louder and more obvious, like right there.
Yes.
And that's why it always feels like it's overpowering. And when you mention that, I remember that the light is there, but it's just that it's softer and it doesn't scream at you to remind you that it's there, but it's there in the gentle things. So I love how you mentioned that, because that is important to remind people that it's not gone. It's just not as loud.
No, and it's a wonderful resource, like beauty. I mean, actually, just on a nervous system level, and the nervous system is, we want to try to take good care of it in these experiences because it tends to be in hyperactivation or collapse. So we want to resource ourselves. Some of the stuff I was speaking to a little bit earlier, but beauty is a wonderful resource. So you might, like really focus on a flower, just like your mind might want to go everywhere. Okay, I'm going to really focus on this flower and just take it in. There were times that, yeah, I would go on a little, just all I could do was like a little walk around the block, and I would walk really slowly and I would look at a flower for a while until I was able to take it in. Yeah. Yeah. So the light is there, and yeah, in the ways you're pointing to. And
yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. That's really beautiful. And I love that message. And it's actually perfect while you have the light around you at the moment too. It's like the light is going.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So
And then she flew away.
Yeah. That would be.
It is kind of like, oh, that kind of light.
It is at the moment. It's like surrounding you. Beautiful. So is there anything that you'd like to, I guess, just tell everyone about what it is that you do and some of your offerings, perhaps your website where people would like to find you?
Yeah. So I'm at marisahandler.com. It's just my name. And I do a number of things. I work one-on-one with people as a coach, both a life coach and a creative coach. I have a 9-month group program that's an in-depth creative coaching program, offering a pretty different, just a lot of actually is fruits of my own path over the last 2 decades, offering just a different paradigm for how we put our genius out into the world. And yeah, all of that is on my website along with various other offerings. And
Great.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I'll make sure I have that all available.
Yeah, and there's links to my writing and to my songs, and
Right.
there's
Right.
all my art as well. So there's that.
Beautiful. Excellent.
So it's a guided meditation designed to really drop you into your deeper nature, your deeper truth. And then there's also a guide on really kickstarting a creative practice.
Oh,
and I think
lovely.
there's a song in there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sounds great. Okay. Well, we're going to have a link to that in the description of the YouTube as well. Perfect. Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for your time, Marisa. It's been lovely having this chat with you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's always like just such thousands of miles away, and kindred spirit,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And it's the message too. It's so so important to have other people knowing that other people have been through this. It's okay. You're gonna be great at the end, and that we're all actually here supporting you in the ether and in these messages. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Amen.